Well, look, tell me a little bit about UCM. It's so much more than just one shelter. It's a lot of different
It
services,
is.
and I'm not sure everybody even understands what that
Right.
is. So let's
UCM
break it down for everybody who may not be as in the know as say I am.
Okay. United Community Ministries actually started in 1977. It
Okay,
was the church mission, and it was not in the current location. It was at the Good Shepherd Episcopal Church.
that's right.
And the men volunteered to staff it. It was only open at night.
Right.
Men volunteered to staff it.
I remember that. Seabury Thorpe and others, and
Right,
John Thorpe, and a
right.
lot of old names from the
Mhm,
past.
mhm. So in 1993, it merged with Crisis Ministry, and
Okay,
it is a nonprofit 501(c)(3)
right,
and moved to the building that it currently is on McDonald Street.
right,
And it's still it started out as being a church mission.
right. That was the old farmers market, I
It
think, when I was
was.
a child. Yeah.
Yes, it was. And then the second arm to UCM that developed
Mhm.
was the Bassett Center
Right.
on Branch Street.
So two very different missions, though, right? So the
Right.
one on McDonald Street is sort of a soup kitchen, but also a shelter for
Yes.
men,
M-
right?
Men and women.
Okay.
And we average, like currently today, we've got, that's right, we've got 37 in the shelter.
Right.
We can have 60, but we have 37 in the shelter, 24 men and 13 women
Okay.
currently.
All right.
And as the weather starts getting colder, the shelter will fill up.
Okay.
And it also serves as that emergency shelter, like for hurricanes
Right.
and snowstorms,
Right. Which we have
etcetera.
on the way.
We do.
Right.
And so, if we have space available, it will open for emergencies.
Right.
The Bassett Center is for families with children.
Okay.
And we can have 12 families. We're outfitted for 12 families.
Mhm.
And currently we have um, 8 families
Mhm.
and let's see, 12 adults, and the rest are children.
Right. Wow.
Mhm. So the McDonald Street shelter, which is the men's and
Right.
women's shelter,
Right.
also is the soup kitchen for the community.
Right.
And also, we do food baskets
Okay.
for the needy in the community.
Okay.
And we're averaging now, and it will increase as the weather gets colder. We're serving 30 meals a day, 30 individuals a day for
Okay.
meals.
Right.
And we're averaging 8 food
And so
baskets.
anybody qualify. You just show up, I guess, at
Right.
mealtime and no questions
No
asked. And,
questions asked. You can come in and
right.
get a meal.
And so seasonally, obviously, there's some change. So in the summertime, I guess it's at the low point
Right.
because, well, it's warm and,
Right.
there are lots of other opportunities out
Mhm.
there. And then what is normally a peak season for you? What's the winter look like in terms of sheltering people and feeding people?
Winter is our
Right.
peak season.
Okay.
And because it's cold, they don't want to stay out and sleep on a park bench
I
or
certainly wouldn't.
right. And I mean, they're hungry all the time, but in the winter, we see an increase
Right.
in the citizens that come to the soup kitchen.
Okay.
And we stayed open through the pandemic.
Right.
We did not shut down.
Well, and that created all kinds of challenges for you, I know.
Very
'Cause,
much so.
well, COVID, now you've got people that are congregating. You've got to make sure you have PPE. You have to
Mm,
make sure you have the proper testing and you have the proper treatment protocols in place. So
right.
I
It
know
did.
in running some healthcare facilities, that amped up our cost
Right. exceeding.
tremendously. I couldn't give you a percentage off, but it was a very big number, very
Right.
big number.
Right.
Well, look, just getting PPE was daggone impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at
Mm-hmm.
any price.
Right.
So, but anyway, so you made it through that.
Made it
Praise the
through
Lord.
that. Right.
So what are the kind of challenges you're seeing?
Well,
Let's just do McDonald Street, and then we can talk about Bassett Center, and
okay, the McDonald's, frankly, the McDonald's
right.
street, the women's and men's shelter is our biggest challenge.
Okay.
We have both buildings are old buildings
Right.
and have constant need for maintenance and upkeep.
Right.
And the families and children in the Bassett Center are easier to
Mhm.
transition out.
Right. That's
The
interesting.
the homeless shelter for men and women, it's a challenge. What we're finding is the individuals in the McDonald Street shelter have medical disabilities,
Right.
as well as mental health disabilities.
Well, I can't remember last time I saw the statistics. It's an amazingly high number, like 85, 80+% of all folks in the homeless population ranks have some sort of mental illness or diagnosed or diagnosable. I don't know if that's the right number or higher or lower, but it's a large, large number.
It
So how
is.
do you treat that? Because that creates management challenges too, or it can
Well,
potentially.
no, it does create management challenges. In fact, right now we've got 8 individuals with mental health issues, 11 with medical
Right.
disabilities. We screen on when they come to us for shelter.
Right.
We have a screening process. In fact, we're still testing for COVID.
Right. Well, and you need to.
Yeah, because
It hadn't gone away.
it hadn't gone away. And so we do a screening with them, looking, do you have any other support out there, etc. Then we make a determination, can we care for this individual?
Right.
Someone with a lot of medical issues, we do not have medical staff.
Right. Right.
And so if they have issues, we may not be able to provide for them. Mental health is a different animal. We have NA meetings
Right.
weekly for the residents, if they're needed.
Right.
And we have other volunteers that come in, but it's still a challenge. We have new beginnings.
Right.
They come in and work with our residents
Mhm.
to help us. And the biggest obstacles, besides their underlying, is if they have no money at all, then it's a challenge finding them somewhere they can go. We apply for Section 8 housing for
Right.
them. Or with them.
Right.
Some are have challenges manipulating the technology,
Sure.
computers.
Sure.
Some do not have any of their paperwork, birth certificates, social security numbers, etc.
Wow.
That makes it a challenge. And we try, our goal is to get the residents out within 90 days
Okay.
because the turnaround,
Right.
we need to free up beds,
Right.
etc. But some stay in longer. We have one resident that has been there for 4 years.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you don't have a social security number, I don't know who you are. Well, I mean, I know who you are. I can't prove who you are. That limits all kinds of
Mhm.
social programs that exist
Right.
that you to be able to access. So, what is the average length of stay? I mean, if 90 days is the target day, you got somebody there for 4 years. I mean, of the 37, what is it? 3 months, 4 months, 5 months? If you had to guess,
If I had to guess,
yeah,
and it will be
I
a
guess I
guess,
got you.
I'd say the average is about 3 months.
Okay, so a guy or gal show up. They are eligible for a meal. They stay at the facility. You're testing them. you're doing some sort of psych evaluation then if you
Mhm.
can identify, you know, challenges. So then you are, I guess, putting together a care plan of
We
some
are
sort.
absolutely. Uh-huh.
And part of that care plan or part of that treatment plan or whatever you phrase it as,
Right.
I guess includes trying to find ongoing housing.
Mhm.
So then Section 8 becomes potentially part of that. Is that not everybody probably qualifies? Everybody may qualify, but maybe you
Well,
can't get everybody
yeah,
qualified.
yeah. Housing is our no affordable housing
Right,
is our major issue
right,
because some may have debts,
right,
and depending on what the debt is and how much it is, we may absorb that. We may
right.
pay that in order to help them transition to the next stage.
Sure.
So that comes out of
Yeah.
our
Your
funds.
funding that you're not necessarily budgeting for, but it
Right.
makes sense. I mean, if
Yeah.
I have a $300 debt, let's just say, well, that's more money than God if I have zero.
Right.
And if that stands in the way of thousands of dollars of benefit that the government may be willing to provide the individual, then why wouldn't you pay it off?
Right. Exactly.
Why would you let that be the barrier that keeps them from
Exactly.
progressing? So what happens then after I find Section 8 housing and I've transitioned out of the homeless shelter in this case? I guess I'm now on my own, or is there ongoing classes about retraining or
Well, we do classes
right,
at the shelter
right,
for the residents while they're in the shelter.
okay,
Before they transition, a part of those classes includes what happens,
right,
and do they need financial training,
okay,
budgeting training? In fact, while they're at the shelter, if they're working, they are required to budget and
okay,
put aside a certain amount of a percentage of their income coming in, one that may be used post, um, I want to say discharge. That's a
sure.
hospital
Well,
end, but yeah,
I've spent my life in healthcare, so
that's
I'm fine
right.
with that. Discharge
Discharge
or
too.
transition, I guess.
Transition, that's right. So they can use that for any type of deposit that they have to put down, et cetera. But it also gives them or helps them acquire the skills for budgeting and putting money aside
Right,
for those issues, so they don't revert back into a state of homelessness.
right,
So we help them while they're there acquire those skill sets. And we also help them once they leave. They may get a Section 8,
right,
but they may not have any furnishings for it.
right.
So we help them with that.
Well,
We have
and that
done,
doesn't turn on the heat either. That just gives me a
no,
roof.
right. And so we have storage that we have accumulated
Mhm.
items that have been donated over the years that if they're what is needed, then we give them to the
Right.
resident to help them transition.
So coming in, the intake process is a lot more than me just checking in. Hey, I
Oh,
want a meal and I need I need a cot and some hot
no.
food.
No, it is very involved. Case manager, I have a case manager
Sure.
at the shelter, community shelter, and then a case manager at the Bassett Center.
Right.
And the intake process includes the individuals or families sitting down with the case manager and going through an intake assessment.
Okay.
So she can gather all the necessary information to work with the client on formulating their um, exit plan,
Sure.
really.
Right. Right.
What is it going to take to get you to the next level of stability in your life?
So
And
I'm not just Otis showing up in Mayberry, like checking
mm-mm,
myself in and checking myself out.
right,
I've made a commitment to you
right,
to work on a transition so that I can
right.
exit and better myself
And their goals,
and their goals.
right.
So how many people drop out of that? ish. I mean, somebody's got to. I mean, there's
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, we have rules. If you're gonna
right,
be in the shelter, you have rules that you have to follow,
sure,
and some individuals are not into following rules,
right,
and so they exit out very quickly,
sure,
if they don't wanna abide by the curfew time, and we also have, they have work they
right,
have to do at the
right,
shelter, and if they don't do it a certain number of
right.
times, then they're canceled, and if they still don't do it, they're exited out of the
Okay, got it.
program.
I got it. Well,
Trying to get them into a work ethic
right,
and accountability ethic.
right. And that's really the point I'm trying to make. This is not just something I just, it's just I, you know, come one, come all, where there's no accountability. It's a program that you
Mhm.
have at UCM that really is designed to helping those that are homeless and equipping them in whatever way that they need based on the assessment,
Mm.
whether it be psychologically, whether it be fiscally, whether it be physically, to be able to transition to a next outcome that's just better for them and which looks like maybe gainful employment. Maybe it looks like different for everybody.
Right.
So, wow, how many people do you run through the program a year on average?
On average, for the men and women shelter, we average about 194 a year
Wow,
that we run through.
right. Are you seeing increases in that, decreases, or has it been kind of constant?
Kind of constant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that's maybe because just the facilities are limited to what they are? I mean, you only have so much capacity. You can only do 60 at a time.
Well, no, I don't
Yeah.
think it's because of
Okay.
capacity, because like right now we have 37.
Right.
Well, that gives us about
23.
23 beds
Right.
that are
Right.
available. So I think it's just
That's what the market is
that's right.
demonstrated at this point in time,
Right.
at least based on, and of course, we're going into some hard times economically here, or
Right.
the country will, so that probably has influence as
Right.
well.
Well, and I think the word is out on the street that their residents are held accountable
Right.
and that we do have rules.
Well, so if I'm looking for help, I'm coming
Mm,
to you. If I'm not,
right.
then maybe I'm figuring something else out. I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
Well, great. So where do you get the support? How do you pay for all this?
Well, we pay for it through donations
Right.
and grants.
Right.
Linda Brinson is the executive director,
Hmm.
and she's wonderful. And she writes our grants and tries to keep money coming in. And then we get it from donations. Our primary source of donations are churches
Right.
and some corporations, and then individual
Right.
donations.
Well,
But we have found through, at the onset of COVID, the first year, we were able to get donations,
right.
um, just because we were not able to do our primary fundraiser, which was the Cup of Soup
Right.
that we do in November
Right.
is the Homeless Awareness Month. So
Right.
we time that with that. But because of COVID, we have not been able to do it for the past 2 years.
Right.
And, but the citizens were generous.
Right.
And then we also survived through COVID with getting PP,
Right. PPP monies. Yeah.
right, monies.
Got it.
And John Barker was on our board at that time, and he did a wonderful job.
Great guy.
Great guy,
Yeah.
keeping us financially afloat with the
Mhm.
grants and
Mhm.
keeping up with the monies and the paybacks, etc. But they're no longer available,
Right.
and we no longer that opportunity or one like it is not out there currently. So our coffers are very low. In
Okay.
fact, we
So what does it take to keep you afloat? What is your annual budget? I mean, I know it goes up and down. I know you've had to make a lot of cuts, but in
right.
an ideal world, what is the rough annual budget that you need to run both facilities?
We average expense wise, we average about $32,000 a month
Okay.
to run both
So about
shelters.
$400,000 a year.
About $400,000.
Yeah.
Yes. Our budget this year for 22-23, we are estimating a loss of
Right.
$98,000.
So 500,000.
Yeah.
It's really what it is.
Well, we've had increase in food costs.
Of course you have. Everybody
Increase
has.
in transportation, because if a resident needs to go to a doctor's appointment,
Right. Right.
we'd have to take them.
Well, you've taken on the job, right?
Yeah. And then we go to Raleigh to pick up food at the food bank.
Right.
So the cost of increase.
So we've been working a little bit like the Princess and the Pea, and then all of a sudden inflation came to town, and now
Yeah.
you've got a huge challenge. And the things that are going up the most, the fastest, are the very things that you're providing: food,
Right.
the transportation.
Right.
So those are the things that are really
Shelter,
ramping up.
utility costs.
All of that are ramping
Yes.
up just because the costs are. So,
Right.
so how can somebody plug in and help you? I mean, so obviously churches are primarily, but if I'm a private donor, how would I go about doing that? And I assume you accept food too,
Right.
or you would. Good.
And we accept paper goods even.
Sure.
I mean, they can go to our website and they
Okay.
can see a list of products that are needed on a monthly basis.
Sure.
But we can accept donations if someone wants to donate.
Sure. Cash is always
Cash
good.
is always
so my
good.
wife says, you know what? Green goes with everything. It's
True.
always the right size.
That's
and
right.
it goes with everything.
That's right. Oh,
Well, good. All right. So, so we just need to get the word out. We need to let people know really what the mission is, and try to get folks to rally behind it. And I know even during COVID, I'm sure many churches also took a little bit of call it a pay
They
cut
did.
revenue, because
Right.
people just weren't present. A lot
right.
of people didn't have jobs, or they were impacted during all this. So it's just been a tough time, compounding. And I guess we're in a tough spot. So we got to
Right.
make sure that we get to a good place.
Right. We sure do.
So what else am I missing? So we've talked a little bit about McDonald Street and what the needs are. Roughly, you need $500,000 a year.
For both.
For both. I understand that. It's a
Okay.
combination.
Huh.
But now, so the Bassett Center really is about families and
Right.
transitioning families.
Families and children.
Families and children. So that's got to be a little tricky too. I mean, I've got kids, they're in school. What district are they in? You're trying to transition them out to another place.
Mhm.
Does that impact different schooling and transportation associated with that? School supplies. I mean, it's just a different set of needs. So tell me
Right.
about the unique challenges you're finding there.
Well, the Bassett Center, and I think it's because of the children,
Right.
we actually are able to get more donations because of children. And we have individuals in the community, as well as churches and organizations that will adopt, if you will, the Bassett Center and host a back to school program
Right.
and give them backpacks.
Sure.
And then do other activities for the Bassett Center. It doesn't mean that we're not slim there. We're
No. And don't stop. Don't hear that.
Right.
But it is relatively better.
But if you compare the two,
You're still 90,000 under budget for both
Right.
centers, right?
Yes. If I have, and we're not gonna. The issue is we are not going to get in debt.
Right.
So if we can't get the funding,
You
we
just have to cut
will
services.
close
Right.
the men's and women's shelter.
Right.
Because the Bassett Center, we get funding and
State funding, federal funding, I guess,
the
both.
same for the community shelter.
Right.
We just don't get enough.
Right.
And so we would keep the family shelter
Right.
open,
Right.
and it would be very slim, but it would be a break even.
Sure.
And all we're trying to do is a break even.
Right. Right. Nobody's making any money on this.
No one is
Yeah,
making
yeah.
any money.
But the impact societally is pretty huge, right? I mean, if you're
Right.
just talking about roughly, you said 190 people you serve on an annual basis, just around that 200 people. If you've taken 200 people and you've taken them off, off a burden from the community as a whole, well, that's tremendously impactful for first responders, for ED. I mean, the list goes on. That is tremendous. And so what you're doing is a great, great, great work. And we just need to make sure that we get out there and just talk to a lot of people and make sure that there's a greater awareness of what's going on.
Right. I think the homeless in the area are invisible
Right.
because of the shelter.
Well, that's true. That's partly true. Right.
Mhm.
Partly true. Well, look, we've run out of time, and I want to
Okay.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And let's just commit to getting the word out. I mean, if anybody's listening and watching this right now, I'm just going to make a personal plea that they contribute money to your charity, and
Mhm.
that the service that you're doing, the impact you're having on our community is just tremendous. And I want to thank you for spending your time doing that, committing to making sure that happens in a good way. Because look, it's a thankless job, but the impact of it in terms of touching people's lives is probably beyond measure. I mean, there's no way to really be able to quantify it, but I know what would happen if you weren't there. And just want to thank you for doing what you
Thank
do.
you. Thank you.